What do you do when you and your coworker are super into each other, but you can't be together? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, I, 28-year-old female, have been with my partner, 38-year-old male, for 14 months, and he still hides me on social media. Should I be worried? My boyfriend is consistently active on social media, Insta, Facebook, Threads, but he's never posted or tagged me, and he won't let me post or tag him. He basically looks single, and it seems deliberate. For example, if we do stuff together, he'll post pics of himself and not mention me at all. He lets his family, friends, and coworkers, etc. post and tag him, but he made me delete a picture of us together and only let me keep one where you can't see his face. He still has a couple of posts up about his ex, including a poem he wrote about her, which makes me think he may not see me as a serious partner. He's not affectionate in public, but I've met some of his friends and went to one of their weddings, and I've even lived with him for a while. So it's not like he's hiding me in real life, but I can't help but feel like he's not fully committed and he's keeping his options open for the long term. Am I being paranoid and overthinking, or should I be worried? I mean, I can't lie, if I were in OP's position, being with somebody for 14 months and still not being mentioned or included even minutely in their presence online if they're going to have one, I would be pretty off-put by that. I mean, this guy is clearly going to lengths to make sure not only are you not featured in any of his stuff, but that he's not featured in any of your stuff. There's something clearly not connecting about that. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy tricky relationship topics, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, should I, 33-year-old female, tell everyone the real reason I left my husband, 34-year-old male? So, I actually moved out from living with my husband about a year and a half ago, but we were basically separated for months before then. Everyone asks what happened because we apparently did a pretty good job of giving the illusion of a happy couple. I suck at lying. I've listed some of the issues in our marriage, but I still get people, mostly both of our parents, asking why we broke up and couldn't work it out. So, the marriage was doomed from the start. 1 month after we got married, I found out that he was cheating on me for the majority of our 6-year relationship before the marriage. I felt trapped because I had just found out I was pregnant a month before we got married. I went off birth control because we wanted children and didn't expect to get pregnant immediately, and we closed on our first home together the day after we got married. If I'd found out just 2 months earlier, none of those things would have happened. We had literally just settled down, and then that bombshell was dropped on me. I didn't tell anyone because I knew everyone would hate him, but he was the father of my child and I wanted to give her a good life. Plus, I don't want to be a single parent and go through the pregnancy and birth alone, so I stayed. He also begged me not to tell even his family or his friends because he was so ashamed of it, so I had to suffer in silence, never told anyone. Of course, this grew into resentment. I didn't really hate him, but I wasn't in love with him anymore. I stuck it out through 7 years of marriage until I realized life was short, and I didn't want to be with him anymore. The nail in the coffin was after he lied to me about his income, leading us to purchase a home that was way out of our budget. A home I never wanted and constantly told him I felt was more than we can afford. But he kept showing me the charts and numbers that showed we could easily afford it. He fudged the numbers, and I didn't notice. When I found out, I forced him to sell the home, and we went our separate ways. When people ask, I mention that lie and other sneaky financial things he's done, secret credit cards, etc., as the reason for our separation. But he begged me not to tell people that he cheated, especially not his family or my brother, who he's close to. But people can tell I'm lying, and I'm worried that they may think that I was the one that cheated. A few months before we purchased that big, expensive house, I started a conversation with my husband about how I was starting to want to see other people. I wasn't asking to cheat, I either wanted us to work through that or to separate. But he brought up an open marriage, so I figured, why not? Maybe it could work out. If not, we're on the outs anyway. Surprise, surprise, it didn't work out. I didn't mind him being with other people, it was better to be out in the open about it, but he was insanely jealous when I started relationships with other men. But I ended up meeting my current boyfriend during the open part of my marriage. Many people know my boyfriend and I were close during the end of my marriage, and it really seems that either I cheated or left my husband for my boyfriend. My husband and I gave the story that we started seeing other people before we moved out and announced our separation. He even told everyone that he started dating someone first. But I still worry people think I cheated, since we're both tight-lipped on what really ended our marriage. It's also kinda lonely that no one really knows what I went through, and it kinda isolated me. A part of me just wants to tell everyone, but right now, my husband and I have been amicable. We've done everything outside of the courts. He's giving me plenty of financial report. I feel like if I'd start blabbing, then he can cut me off. Then I'd have to go through the court and see about getting court-ordered support, and it can be a whole mess. It's best just to stay friendly and keep his secret. Am I wrong in putting it out there that I don't really see why OP has to go around saying these things? I mean, I don't know if it's just weighing on their conscience and it would make them just physically feel better to say these things, but it just seems like it would cause more of a headache than it's even close to being necessary for. If things are as good as OP says they are right now, then why are they left feeling like they need to rock the boat so bad? Our next story is, I don't know how I feel about what my boyfriend asked me. So a little background. I, female 32, have been with my boyfriend, male 37, for 2 years, and we currently live together. In 2020, back when I was single, I had my roommate dip out on rent, which was $2,700, and had to carry rent by myself for 4 months off a $3,000 monthly salary. So in desperation, I joined that one spicy site to make ends meet on top of working full-time and working Uber Eats too. I stopped doing it once I no longer needed to. From the get-go, I made my boyfriend aware that I used to do the spicy accounting in 2020, and he was totally cool about it. Well, things have been a bit tougher on us financially lately, and today he asked if I would consider restarting my account. I told him no, that the only reason I did so in the past was because I was desperate and utterly alone at the time. He was understanding and dropped it. To be honest, it's still bothering me that he asked. I never was super comfy with doing it back in the day, but honestly, with how much I was working at the time, it was my only option to make ends meet without physically running myself into the ground. He's never brought it up before, but it honestly made me feel awful that he would suggest it. I can't blame OP, the whole thing kind of skeeves me out too. I completely understand OP turning to this when they literally had nothing else to do, but for the boyfriend to go to her and be like, hey, what if we pursue this again, just gives me really gross vibes. My question is, he understands that you did it, but does he understand how you felt about it? Like, did OP express to them how they didn't like it, it always made them feel uncomfortable, and that they only did it because it was like the one thing they could even turn to doing to get money? I mean, maybe even though it came across a bit weird, maybe they were only mentioning it just to be charitable and bring up a possible solution without fully understanding how it might affect you. This next story is, wife thinks I chose work over her because I won't call in on a whim. I work for the state, and while mandatory overtime is a thing, we're a single income household by my wife's wishes, as she wants to be a stay-at-home mom. She's also in charge of finances and insists that I volunteer for overtime if it's not mandated to maintain at least 48 hours of overtime per 2-week check. Even so, we were still regularly short on what we need, and she's been asking me to put in 60 hours or more. I have plenty of paid time off and sick time saved up, and I have no problem using it when I need to. They'll take my overtime pay before they'll pay it out though, so I don't take much time off to keep the money coming in. Calling in is a pain, each shift is ran by its own supervisor, they don't communicate with another, and I have to call in an hour before my shift starts or later unless I put a day off request. Usually my requests are honored, or if not, I just tell them approved or not, I ain't coming on that day and I don't have to worry about calling in at the butt crack of dawn. Last night, my wife asked me to stay up late with her and call into work. She's asked me this before, and I've told her that unless we actually need me to take the time off, I'd rather request it in advance. If I don't, then I'm anxious about calling in at shift time all night and can't enjoy it. I told her as much, and to paraphrase, she said it's okay, I'm used to you choosing work over me. All of a sudden, we didn't need the overtime so bad, and not getting over the anxiety of lying and calling in at a moment's notice was a sign of me not wanting to be with her. I just don't know what to do to help her not feel this way. I offered a compromise that I would request a weekend off or burn some vacation time and spend some time with her and the kids. She said it was the spontaneous act of taking a day off at a moment's notice she wanted to feel loved. I brought up surprising her perhaps with a day off and romantic plans, and she said it was still choosing work over her to plan a day off, even if it's a romantic surprise for her. I just can't wrap my head around this, and it bothers me because I do adore my wife, and I don't want her or the kids to feel second to my job. I work a lot, and I know this to be true. I just don't understand why that doesn't mean I can plan and give proper notice to my work without it making her secondary. If it was an emergency or if she needed for something last minute, I'd have no issue. If she communicated to me that she had a terrible day or if I needed a mental health day, I'd have no issue. Those are what I want to save the days I call in for. Yet doing so just to be random and spontaneous just seems childish. Irresponsible even, especially as my work will literally pull someone for mandatory overtime to work my shift if I call in last minute. Mostly just wanted to vent, but any 2 cents on how to adjust my view to better talk to my wife or understand her, I'd appreciate it. So I fully sympathize with OP here. I feel like the wife is making some weird, irrational, uncompromising stances here. I think if OP is more than willing to work to schedule a day off to have a romantic plan, especially an unprompted one in the future, they should be more than happy with even just that. Her going from, you need to work as much as you can, to, you need to call off right now. I mean, talk about whiplash. Our next story is, this girl I like doesn't want a relationship, even though everything we do suggests otherwise. What should I do? Me, male 19, and this girl, female 20, I've known for a month. So I've been in quite the situation lately, and I could really use some advice. I met this amazing girl and we really hit it off. We even got pretty close to taking things to the next level, but we both decided to hold off. The attraction is definitely there, so that's not the issue. We've spent tons of time together, like days on end at her place, just having a blast and laughing our heads off. Naturally, I started catching feelings. I finally decided to talk to her about it, and I suggested we either stop being just friends, or maybe even give dating a shot. Well, she got pretty upset with me for suggesting that and even called it a waste, urging me to stay friends. She's been clear she doesn't want a relationship right now, but she didn't say I was the problem. She just views relationships as toxic and leading to jealousy. Here's where it gets even more confusing. When we're out with friends, everyone thinks we're together. She responds to my texts in like 0.5 seconds, invites me over to her place at odd hours, and we flirt like crazy. She even texts me all the time, and we've done so many things together, even though we're not officially dating. But every time I bring up the idea that I don't want to be just friends, she shuts it down and calls it rude. I'm really lost here. What should I do, Reddit? Is there any way to change her mind, or should I just accept that we're going to be friends and there's nothing I can do? I mean, it would be great if she could explain her side so you can understand where she's coming from and how she's feeling. But honestly, at some point, I feel like this starts becoming more of a no means no kind of thing, right? If you've asked this girl and you said, hey, we should be together, we should go out, and she says no, and you keep pushing it, I don't think your chances of success are ever going to improve, at least not in a healthy way. This next story is, am I being ungrateful to leave a perfect guy? Can't feel anything anymore. He is 26-year-old male and I, 24-year-old female. It's been some weeks since we're dating, and he has all the green flags. But I suddenly stopped feeling. He kept on trying to be there, brought flowers and letters. But every time he did something, it reminded me of my ex. He is emotionally available, gives all the attention, and understands me like no one. I would just say that if this guy seems as perfect as possible, I would hesitate to say, oh yeah, end things, move on. I would instead say, try to understand why you're feeling the way you are. Especially when OP brings up that it reminds them of their ex, it sounds like there's some negative thoughts that aren't being generated by him, being misattributed to him. Before you leave somebody that you say is perfect for you, I would try to fully understand why it is you want to leave. Our next story is, it's my, female 25, boyfriend, male 29, and I's 7-year anniversary. Am I being unreasonable? Is it unreasonable for me to be upset that my boyfriend didn't have flowers ready on our 7-year anniversary? My female 25, boyfriend, male 29, and I have been together for 7 years today. We have a reservation at a fancy restaurant and are getting couples massages tomorrow morning. Because of the expenses, we agreed that we would only get each other cards, and I asked for flowers. I initiated the planning of these things and made these decisions for us with his input. Costs will be split. He has a history of waiting until the last minute on things and has difficulty planning ahead. I've spent many holidays and celebrations feeling upset because I either didn't get a gift until after the holiday, or got an unwrapped gift that he had just gotten or didn't think or have time to prepare. On our 5th year anniversary, I put forth a lot of effort in planning to make it special for us because it was such a big year. He did nothing besides get me a card and wrote barely anything in it. Every time I'm upset about him not meeting expectations, I communicate to him. He often apologizes and says he'll do better, and I often feel the need to remind him around holidays to plan ahead. I don't need expensive things, but the thought and effort of planning these things ahead of time mean a lot to me. Weeks ago, I told him very clearly that I would be upset if I didn't get flowers and a card for our anniversary that was prepared ahead of time. Today, he called me while I was on my way home, saying that he was going to get some cream cheese for a recipe. I instantly felt like he was going to get stuff for our anniversary. I asked him if he was, and he said that he wasn't. When I got home from work, I didn't see flowers and immediately knew he didn't have any, and he admitted to me that he lied and that he was going to get me flowers from CVS. He told me that there were none there. Go figure. I immediately was upset and tried to not start crying. Obviously, I know that flowers are better and fresher the day of, but my boyfriend is currently jobless. He was home all day and could have gone to get flowers at any point. He chose to go right before I got home to a drugstore and had to return empty-handed so I didn't arrive home before him. He prepared a card for me and tried to get some, so he doesn't understand why I'm upset and is currently out getting me flowers right now. He feels that he planned ahead and did what was asked. I feel that he didn't. Should I be grateful that he's getting them now? Should I have specified that I didn't want him getting flowers the day of, after I was already home from work? I feel like the bar is so low, but that I'm also expecting too much. I don't know if it's because you've been together for 7 years, but it just seems like they don't put in enough effort for you and your relationship. It just comes across as not really caring. I don't think you should have to ask to get any kind of gift on your anniversary. I think it should just kind of be expected. He's just not putting in any effort. And being jobless and living at home, you would think that's like the least they could do, right? Our next story is, should I tell my friend her boyfriend cheated? My husband's had his friends since high school. We're 22. I've known about his friends for 5 years. One of his distant friends, Jake, started dating Abby. They'd been dating for about 2 months. Jake attended my husband's and I's wedding, of course, but his girlfriend could not attend, unfortunately. I also invited my friend Sarah to the wedding. I'd only known Sarah for about a year, but never really hung out with her. And Sarah is also best friends with Abby. Come to find out, Jake and Sarah hooked up in my wedding in his car. After our wedding, Jake's actual girlfriend Abby went to the after party with Sarah, and they all partied together. This was about 9 months ago now, and I just started to get to know Abby, and she's really cool and fun. Sarah and Abby are still very close friends, and it makes me upset knowing what I know and how Sarah can just act buddy-buddy with her. Sarah's also really touchy with Jake too. I want to tell her, but I don't know if it matters anymore because it's been so long. I'm not trying to stir the pot. Should I? Also, P.S. His friends will probably not like me. That's why I'm afraid, because I've already snitched on another friend 2 years ago for the same thing. I mean, to be honest, if people don't want to involve themselves in that drama, I understand enough. But on the other hand, if you were the one being cheated on, wouldn't you want to know? Our next story is, my 21-year-old female boyfriend, 19-year-old male, accused me of emotional cheating with his friend, but I don't think I was. Was I? I've been with my boyfriend for 2 years now. This is a new situation that has come up in our relationship. In this past relationship, his girlfriend cheated on him with his closest friend. They were basically family, despite him telling her his boundaries about talking to that specific friend. I supported him as a friend through this situation. He has the same boundary for me, which I followed for 2 years now. Any conversation I've ever had with this friend, in person, has been very cut short and blunt, and I have never contacted him on social media whatsoever. My boyfriend has my full permission to check if I have any DMs with this person without there being any agreements or loss of trust. Now, he has another friend who we'll call G. G is one of his other very close friends. He's very polite and respectful of our relationship and has never done anything to compromise it or cross anyone's boundaries. Me and G have like a sibling type relationship where we sometimes, not often, joke around and bully each other. We also talk about my relationship and how much I adore him. G is a trusting friend who I can go to if I'm in need of advice, not relationships or anything overly personal, and my boyfriend is unavailable. I have zero romantic feelings towards him. Whenever I have a conversation with him on social media, I always show my boyfriend what we talked about or tell him the details so he doesn't get left in the dark or feel betrayed. I also give him permission to look through my DMs with G. He never has, but knows if he needs to, he can. He's now comparing me to his ex-girlfriend, saying that I'm crossing his boundaries and basically cheating. His boundaries only ever stated not to talk to that one friend of his, not G. Is this really considered emotional cheating? Honestly, I feel like the boyfriend has his own insecurities lashing out here. I'm just surprised that he's still friends with the friend that slept with his ex. I think clearly that's creating some unhealthy behavior in this guy. From what OP described, as long as it is how OP described, I don't think there's emotional cheating going on. It sounds more like they're punishing OP for what their ex and friend had done. Our next story is my 24-year-old female boyfriend, 29-year-old male, finished prematurely when hooking up. He left embarrassed and then said it was because he's uncertain about us. My 24-year-old female boyfriend, 29-year-old male, and I were finally ready to hook up tonight. There was some foreplay and then I was helping him to get him prepared. Only very shortly into helping him, he finished. He was really embarrassed, didn't even want me to look at him, and apologized. I tried to tell him to not feel bad, even though I was a little disappointed. He just wanted to leave after a few minutes of cuddling. Despite him being older, I am more experienced than him. I've had 3 partners before him, 2 of which were very experienced and taught me a lot over the course of our relationship. He's only had sex with one person, and since it was a long-distance relationship, only a couple times. He texted me when he got home and essentially said he's now realizing he wasn't actually ready because he was uncertain about our future. When I tried to talk to him about it, he said he didn't want to think anymore tonight. I went from wanting to comfort him and make sure he didn't feel bad to almost feeling a little hurt that he dropped that on me and then just went to sleep. I also asked him very directly multiple times if he was ready. Told him if he wasn't, I wouldn't be upset. Should I be trying to talk about things? Should I be stepping back if he's having uncertainty? So to me, I think it's very clear that he has a lot of insecurity about this. I think what he needs is honestly just a lot of reassurance about this. Like OP said, they're not very experienced in this, and he's taking it embarrassingly. He doesn't want to be a disappointment. At 29 years old, you might expect more, but clearly this guy hasn't been very experienced. I think what's more disappointing is not the fact that he finished early or he was embarrassed about it. It was the fact that upon that happening, he just went and burned the house down. All I'm saying is it still could have been a very fun night for the both of you, even with him having done that. This next story is it normal to be upset about a breakup 24 years later? This is not a rhetorical question. I've only been in one relationship before and I'm still in it, so I have no experience with breakups. My 44-year-old male, wife, 43-year-old female, is still upset about a breakup from 1999, the guy before me. She's not crying type of upset, but still shows signs of hurt and even jealousy of the girl that her ex dated from next to 2+ decades ago. They dated while my wife was 17 to 18, and I do know that she was wild about him, even going so far as to take up percussion in our college marching band. He was a marching band drummer at his school, because she wanted to have a marching band family with him. After they dated for a year or so, he came into his own, filled out, got good looking, and had a cadre of girls that he was involved with behind her back while she was a freshman in college, 50 miles away. At the end of the relationship, he told her that he had a new girlfriend, but that he would still hook up with her, my wife, on the side. My wife's ego could not handle that position as a side piece, so she very begrudgingly broke up with him. He told my wife that the new girl was the girl of my dreams, which my wife understandably took poorly. There is a wide variety of examples of her continued angst over their breakup that I won't bore you with, unless you ask to hear them. So, is it normal to be hurt by a breakup 24 years later? Yeah, no, the answer I think is usually no. I'm not gonna lie, if I were in OP's position, this would make me feel particularly insecure. Because if you've been married to this person for 24 years and after all that time, there's still going on about this ex, it makes you feel like, what has the last 2 decades been with me then? I guess my question is, how often does this come back up? Like, is it all the time? Is it once a year? It sounds to me like counseling or therapy would probably be a good idea here. Our next story is, I, 35-year-old female, do not want my significant other, 41-year-old male, to hang out with his friend. Am I controlling? My significant other and I have been together 3 years and have a child. He has a drinking problem where, when he drinks so heavily he cannot stop. He drinks all night. He then doesn't come home, and it's awful. This has happened dozens of times. The last time was the worst. After he was drinking, I found not so innocent messages he had sent to other women, and I told him if he wanted to come home to be with me and our toddler, he had to cut those people off and not drink for 60 days. He's almost made the 60 days. The issue is, we have a vacation coming up. It is non-refundable and I need this trip so bad. We leave in a few weeks. I don't want him to do anything to mess up us or our family before this trip. I know this sounds weird. I can see the comments already saying, leave him if you can't trust him, which is valid and I'm already on the verge, but I want us to go on this much needed trip as a family. So if he's going to mess up, I would rather he do it after we come back and let me enjoy my PTO worry-free. He's told me his friend wants to hang out with him. I can understand him being stir-crazy after almost 2 months in the house, but after him ruining trips in the past, not being home in time to take me to my dental surgery, lying about where he is going, etc., I guess I sounded less than thrilled about him wanting to go out with his friend. I don't want to be controlling and lock him up. I want to have a normal relationship where he's a responsible person and I don't have to worry about him leaving. After a tense phone call, I'm wondering, am I wrong? Am I a controlling wife? I just want a nice trip with no drama beforehand. So, although I completely understand where OP's coming from, I do think they're coming across as controlling. Although I do think it's very possible that this guy, who clearly shows maybe some signs of alcoholism, is very well capable of relapsing, going out with his friend. I don't think it's fair to just straight up deny them the chance to ever hang out with their friends ever again because they might have a drink. If he does, that's a decision he makes. I think it's also important to communicate how you're feeling about this whole situation, so hopefully, when he makes those decisions, he's aware of what's going on. Our next story is, my 25-year-old female, coworker, 25-year-old male, are super into each other. We can't be together. I've developed a close relationship with Ryan, 25-year-old male. We meet through work about a year ago at a work conference, and I swear, I felt it was love at first sight. I usually don't believe in that kind of stuff, but what we had was electric from the start. We talked at the conference, but kept it professional. I noted I liked him, but he worked across the country, so it was easy to not obsess over him. Fast forward to the end of last year, and he's transferred to my work site. Though we're in different departments, we work on the same team together. We're very collaborative and spend almost every day together. We work together very well and are very successful in our careers. It's approaching the 1-year mark of us knowing each other, and I'm hopelessly devoted to this man. I have fallen so hard for him and I genuinely don't know what to do. If I had to create a dream man, he would be it. We have amazing chemistry and everyone assumes we're a couple until we correct them. We're in the same social group and spend almost every weekend together. We've traveled internationally together, met each other's families, and pretty much are a couple, besides doing the physical stuff. We've had multiple conversations now around how we both acknowledge we like each other, but there's too big of a risk if it doesn't work out. I will admit, he's the one that is more hesitant to me and has made it clear while we work for the same company, he will never consider a proper relationship with me. We're both young in our careers, and if we want to end things, it would be extremely messy. I think it is the mature, responsible decision, but oh my god, it sucks. It hurts to have someone I care about so close but can't have in the way I want him. I can't avoid him, and I think that's part of the reason why I'm struggling so much. I don't want to keep pinning over a guy who's more than likely will never be mine. How do I let my heart heal and not stay waiting around for this man? How do I convince my heart to know what my head is telling me? How do I get over the fear that this is the best man I'll ever find and no one will ever compare to him? I mean, I'm not gonna lie. If I were in Ryan or OP's position and I found somebody that is clearly clicking so well with me, I would find it really hard to have that kind of maturity that he does. I would subscribe more to the belief that life is too short to let an opportunity like that go when you have clicked so well with somebody for so long. I mean, if anything, why are they not open to like a small trial thing? Like tiptoe into it, you know? See how it works out, live with each other for a little bit. See if you like it, see if it seems like something that's going to work out long term. I guess they're afraid that would still be too serious, or very easily become a commitment that could blow up. If it's as good as OP says it is, I think it would be a huge mistake to just let this go. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another tricky relationship topic, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.